Hi everyone, I'm here today to talk to you about texture. This video is going to be about painting, a little painting, and using the textures that I can get from using the alcohol and using my Fiskars marking pen and a couple of pencils that are watercolor pencils, and then a piece of credit card for basically just scraping my paper. So welcome to the Pasigo Design Watercolor channel, and we're going to get started. So I have a little piece of paper here from a Bao Hong watercolor pad, and it's still on the pad. So I'm just going to draw and paint from here. And I want this to be a very loose painting. I want this to be pretty spontaneous. So I'm just going to be drawing something that allows me to have some sort of interesting shape for a tree. And our tree is going to be the subject of our texture. Trees are fun to do for texturing because they have all this bark that can be used as the area where we create some of our wonderful textures. Also, we can have different colors on the tree. It could be mossy green, it could be orangey browns or darker browns with our blues. We can do a lot of stuff. So this is not really a scripted design that I planned in advance, other than just a quick little sketch of where I think I might want to go, and maybe with a few little pockets of leafy shapes. So you can see that I'm not putting a lot of line, and I'm breaking up my trunk with some shapes of leafy content that I will have, and we'll go from there. My colors are permanent red, Prussian blue, and permanent yellow light. These are all SWC paints. They're made in South Korea, and they are interesting paints to play with, except that a lot of them do contain mixes of pigments. For example, the permanent red is a PR 12 with a PR 48, so two reds to make this color, and PY1 for permanent yellow light, which is good because a lot of the other pigments from PWC from the yellow category have two pigments, and they include white, and the white is not really a color that I like to have in my paints when I'm mixing like this. But I will start with these. So I have drawn some little shapes here, but I'm not going to be held to I won't be holding this too rigidly. My subject is there, and the texture itself will change based on what I do with the alcohol and the rest of the stuff that I'm going to be doing. So let's get started. First of all, I think I would like to paint a little bit of foliage, and for that I will mix some of the yellows and the blues to get a green, and I'll also keep a little bit of yellow handy here and a little bit of blue handy so that I can darken as I feel necessary. So what we have to remember here is that our goal is to use some of these tools as techniques for giving texture. So first of all, I am just going to paint using my yellows and blues. Start with some foliage. I'm starting at the top, and I'm going to work my way down. I'll leave some little pockets of white, and I'll be working my way down in the tree. And where I see that the trunk is starting to become a little bit more prominent, you see I covered the part of the trunk at the top because it just goes off into the space of nothingness up there. But down here now I might want to keep a little bit more information about the trunk, And I will continue. I might actually make this trunk a little bit smaller. So I will add more greens and blues, just pretty much playing here with the different greens. So just trying to get a lot of nice foliage going. The trunk is going to be added afterwards. I'm looking at the background. I'm looking at some of the shapes of the branches that are in here that I initially drew. And I'm looking at the edge of my tree where I want the tree to be in the light. So this is going to be the lighted part, and I'm just going to bring that down. And towards the edges, we can fade things out. All right, so now I'm going to put just a little bit of the alcohol. I'll use my squeezy guy here, and I'm just going to drop a few little drips, and we'll just let that sit. Okay, the trunk now is going to be with some reds and yellows, which gives me an orange, and this is blue here. Oh, ooh, no, it wasn't. I better take it out of here. There's my blue. And what I'm looking for is a nice orange. So I'm just going to go in here and start adding this orange. Everything's very loose right now. It's just really right now, it's just the outlines of things of where shapes will be. And we're going to focus a little bit more on refining this afterwards. All right, and I also have this tool here while the trunk is wet, where I can actually start putting in some lines. And our lines here are just basically going to be tree trunk bark effects. And all I want to do here is add lines that are going either across or up and down. They're usually good to depict trees. And here, a couple of lines that are going up into the branches, maybe a couple more here. So you can already see that this is starting to show. The lines form the groove where the paint will sit in. And because the grooves are like, I'm pushing hard enough with my pen, because they're fairly deep, we're going to be able to see them after it dries. Okay. And let's maybe add a little bit more brown up here. And then when it's drier, we'll be able to go in there and make more, get some more stuff going on in there. One more place where I could put the alcohol is right on the tree. Really, really fun here. It's going to show up even more on the tree because the tree is darker and the alcohol really repels the color. So it's kind of a fun place to see it. And the background, well, we'll be able to touch up the tree and the background as we go along when it gets dry. So I'm just going to leave it here for now, and we can stop the video until it's dry again. Okay, so we're back. The paper is dried. I did blow dry it a little bit. These little circles, some of them seem slightly bit dampish, but it's not too bad, and I'm not going to paint on top of them just yet. So I'll get started with the trunk. What I want to do now is use my pencils, one or two. I'll have to decide when I get started. There's a couple of things that I can do. I can outline them now, or I can put a little bit more pigment and then outline them. It would be best, actually, the way I like to do it is I do like it to be wet where I outline. So for example, let's just say we do this. I put a little bit of water here, then I take my pencil and I do some lines right very close to that edge of the pencil and of the tree. And what that does is, and you can see it happening here, the color is moving. It's not just sitting in one spot, it's actually getting a little bit fluid. And that's the nice part about the watercolor pencil. We can do things inside the tree. Like for example, I could highlight this sort of a shape, which looks like a hole in the tree of some sort. That's where the alcohol came in. I can do it again here. And it's kind of like a little bit of a shadow effect here. If I want to highlight that shadow a little bit more on this side, I can put more pigment in the hole, like I'm doing right here. Now this color here that I'm picking from is one that I didn't mention earlier. This is my Schminke Tundra Violet, and it's quite an interesting color because it has granulation and it is very textured. So I'm going to use a little bit of it in here just to go underneath that hole and underneath this one here as well. And that way I'm just really, again, creating the effect, the illusion of a shape that is sort of jumping out at us a little bit. Okay. Let's do another one down here. So how did I do that again? I put water on. Okay, a little bit of water. I'm softening all the edges. I don't want a lot of water. And then here, I'm just going in with my pencil and making little lines around that shape. I could even make that come out of the tree a little bit. And then I'm using my brush to force the movement of the color. Let's try it again, just a little bit down here. So here's some of that brown coming in here, trying to give again an illusion of a crevice. And let's take our Tundra and add a little bit more color here, and then just go in to make some of those, follow through on some of those lines. A little bit more. Not everywhere, but just in certain areas. Now here's where we have a branch. So the underneath part of the branch might actually be a little bit darker, and this part as well. So I can put that in there right away. Maybe just spread that out a bit more. Brushing it over. And then here's another little branch going up there. Okay, now I'm just tidying up the edges and following some of the lines, going around the circles. Okay, so now I've used my pencil. I did not use this one. Let's use this one in the middle here. Let's add some water and then just put a little bit of redness here. Maybe this one too. Put a little bit of redness around that other little, I don't know what these are. They're just tree things. They just feel like they could be there for whatever reason. Trees have them there. Pieces, maybe pieces of branches that have actually been chopped off. And here, it's still wet, so I can still go in here with my pencil. Any wet edge the pencil will like. I'll continue in here. Wet edges. Okay, should be wet here. Okay, and then what we have, use these. What we have now is foliage in the background. Let's put some more greens in here. So blue, the blues and the yellows. Let's see if we can add another layer of texture for the foliage. And I'm just going on top and using the tip of my calligraphy brush to add some interesting little details. And I'm going right over those bokeh circles. Doesn't matter because it's all about the foliage now. And I'm outlining a little part of that tree shape. And maybe up here, I'm actually going to cross over my trunk. Okay. Soften some edges. And to get some of that green a little bit more, have a little bit more value, deeper value, I'll just take some of the blues. I'll add a little bit of yellow because I do want it to still be a green color, but I will just do some little touch-ups of darker greens. So when we talk about texture, we could also be using our brush to do some leafy shapes. And let's take a look at how that would look if I just did a few here. Taking my brush and making those little pointed shapes. Filling in some holes here. So I don't know, at some point it becomes too much and we figure, well, we should have stopped. So maybe we are at that point, right? Where if we put more, it doesn't really help. But notice that your calligraphy brush has the ability also to provide you with this beautiful little shape here of just making little lines. And take advantage of that with it because it's fun to do. And it also does give you a little bit of extra texture. So let's see if I can add a little bit more of an effect here, just in here. It feels like it might even still be wet, so I can still use my pencil here. Just to make little holes. Okay. And then on the edge, let's just see if I can get a nice edge going here. And a little bit more inside the tree. Okay. And you can move the paint a little bit from your pencil, but not too much. So let's wait till this dries, and then we'll see how it looks, and then we might just add a couple more touch-ups, and then that'll be it. Okay, I'm back, and I used the blow dryer to dry this, and we're just going to do some final touches on this. Just a few things that I think that I would like to add before I call it done. So what I'll be doing is taking some yellows and blues again to make a green, and this time in my green I will add a little bit of red, a little bit more red. And in fact, I want two colors. I want the yellow, red, I want a little bit of greenier stuff, and I want some I want to do the trunk a little bit darker. So I'm mixing paints here very thickly because I'm going to be trying to just create an effect of shadow over here. Oh, it's a blue, more blue. I want that to be a dark brown. Okay. So I might as well just use it all. There we go. Let's try that. Took me a while to get that. I'm not used to using these paints in particular, but let's just, before I paint that, I'll put a little bit of water, so it will be, it won't be wet on wet. I'm going to be putting the water on the right-hand side here, and then I will put some color here very thickly, and then just touching it like this so that it moves. Okay, just up to here. I'm basically putting in some very dark shadows on this side of the tree, and even around here. And I'm going to bring that down. I still see some of my lines, which is good. I might be widening that trunk a little bit, but that's okay. We can still do that. And stretching that out a little bit, bringing this around this shape. Again, over here, underneath both these knobs, underneath this one again. Some very good darks all the way down. And then here also, I'll put a little bit of color like I did here, just to make sure that it moves. I don't want it to just be a line, so I'm going to put a little bit of color, water just on the edge here, so that the paint has something to flow into. And I'll extend that branch just a little bit more here. Now under here, I can use my brush to add textures to this branch. And then here, I don't need a lot of detail going up to the top, but I will need just a little bit in here to show that there is actually a branch shape over here. Just touching the paint a little bit to move it. And I'll make that a little bit fatter over here. Branches do get wider at the bottom. And for the top here, this is where I'm going to go into my the dark greens. I want to add a little bit more color here. I added some water first so that the paint will move. And I'm just adding just a little bit more. See, the water is pooling here. So that was too much water here. So let's lift some of that up. Now notice what's interesting is that it's shying away from the area that I used the alcohol. So it just tells me that the alcohol changes the paper a little bit, the absorbency of the paper, keeping that in mind. Okay, and that is probably pretty close to it, because the more I add at this point, I don't think it's really going to give a lot of value to it. So let's take a look at it. Again, like I mentioned before, I like to look at my painting in the mirror. And what I do see is I see a lot of fluid stuff. So let's do this. This is a trick. Let's blow a little bit of that stuff around. And that gives us, again, a little bit more texture to play with. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching.